zone from over the river, which we call from Orange Hill up to Fancy. Today we did an exercise in terms of our preparation and tests in terms of evacuation of any volcanic eruption.
This assimilation exercise is very important in seeing the readiness. You know, I like how it was done. You were called out, not prepared. So what you actually had here today it was really spontaneous reaction rather than something that was planned or choreographed.
What we are doing is to help sensitize our community on the role that we have to play in terms of any disaster.
I'm from the community of Point. My community is relatively small. We are about 200 persons if we have to evacuate. However, our group has already prepared our evacuation plan. We have a response team. Everybody knows what their role is. If we have to evacuate, I think we will be okay.
The bits and pieces that I didn't know about, I think I gained it. So yeah, I'm ready. My family, we are prepared as well. So yeah, we're good to go.
We know that at any point in time, the Lassa Fray volcano could move into an explosive eruption. Orange Hill will be ready.
Our community is in the red zone from over the river, which we call from Orange Hill up to Fancy. Today we did an exercise in terms of our preparation and tests in terms of evacuation of any volcanic eruption.
This assimilation exercise is very important in seeing the readiness. You know, I like how it was done. You were called out, not prepared. So what you actually had here today it was really spontaneous reaction rather than something that was planned or choreographed.
What we are doing is to help sensitize our community on the role that we have to play in terms of any disaster.
From the community of Point. My community is relatively small. We are about 200 persons if we have to evacuate. However, our group has already prepared our evacuation plan. We have a response team. Everybody knows what their role is. If we have to evacuate, I think we will be okay.
The bits and pieces that I didn't know about, I think I gained it. So yeah, I'm ready. My family, we are prepared as well. So yeah, we're good to go.
We know that at any point in time, the Lassa Fray volcano could move into an explosive eruption. Orange Hill will be ready.
Hello everyone, I am Shakel Bob. I am a former Miss Pitani, a former Miss Rural SCG and Miss SCG contestant and runner-up. I'm a lawyer by profession but a pageant lover at heart. Do not let the negatives prey on your mind because a stitch in time saves 9. So, it's COVID vaccination time. Get vaccinated today to reduce the impact of COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And I urge you, get vaccinated. It is safe and it is effective. Stop the spread, help the fight, and make the choice that is right. And let us unite and do the thing right.
I am Hans John, the 2019 Vinci Ragasoka Monarch. I took the COVID-19 vaccine, and so should you. Let's be an example to others. Get vaccinated today and help control the spread of COVID-19.
Vaccinate if you want to eliminate the spread of the virus in our place, and do not procrastinate, but rather let us vaccinate. Get vaccinated today.
Our community is in the red zone from over the river, which we call from Orange Hill up to Fancy. Today we did an exercise in terms of our preparation and tests in terms of evacuation of any volcanic eruption.
This assimilation exercise is very important in seeing the readiness. You know, I like how it was done. You were called out, not prepared. So what you actually had here today it was really spontaneous reaction rather than something that was planned or choreographed.
What we are doing is to help sensitize our community on the role that we have to play in terms of any disaster.
I'm from the community of Point. My community is relatively small. We are about 200 persons if we have to evacuate. However, our group has already prepared our evacuation plan. We have a response team. Everybody knows what their role is. If we have to evacuate, I think we will be okay.
The bits and pieces that I didn't know about, I think I gain it. So yeah, I'm ready. My family, we are prepared as well. So yeah, we're good to go.
We know that at any point in time, the Lassa volcano could move into an explosive eruption. Orange Hill will be ready.
Hello everyone, I am Shakel Bob. I am a former Miss Pitani, a former Miss Rural SCG and Miss LCD contestant and runner-up. I'm a lawyer by profession but a pageant lover at heart. Do not let the negatives prey on your mind because a stitch in time saves 9. So, it's COVID vaccination time. Get vaccinated today to reduce the impact of COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And I urge you, get vaccinated. It is safe and it is effective. Stop the spread, help the fight, and make the choice that is right. And let us unite and do the thing right.
I am Hans John, the 2019 Vinci Ragasoka Monarch. I took the COVID-19 vaccine, and so should you. Let's be an example to others. Get vaccinated today and help control the spread of COVID-19.
Vaccinate if you want to eliminate the spread of the virus in our place, and do not procrastinate, but rather let us vaccinate. Get vaccinated today.
We hand you over now to Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves. On some very important issues. We hand you over now to Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves.
Thank you very much, NBC Radio. Good afternoon, members of the media, and of course, good afternoon to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines at home and abroad. I have with me here at the head table of this press briefing the Acting Prime Minister, the Honorable Montgomery Daniel, the Commissioner, the Deputy Prime Minister, Montgomery Daniel, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Colin John, and the Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Ms. Michelle Forbes, the other public servants are around, and the Chief Medical Officer is here. I don't, perhaps she just went outside. She's here. Oh, she's here. Good. Sorry. Simone Kisa Beach is here with us. Before I speak to the issue at hand also, I'd like to indicate that joining us on Zoom is our own Professor Robertson, Richie Robertson, the head of the surveillance group here for the volcano at La Soufrière, and who is from the Seismic Research Center at the University of the West Indies based in Trinidad and Tobago. By way of backdrop, I indicate that this morning, very early, I received a telephone call from Michelle Forbes of NEMO, indicating to me that there has been increased activity at La Soufrière of a different kind than what was called the swarming volcanic tectonics earthquakes, which we have had a couple of weeks ago, and then they subsided, and they start back and stop again. And that what we have had now this morning is a series of tremors of a qualitatively different kind than the seismic activity from hitherto, and that has a particular meaning. I spoke to Professor Robertson thereafter, and we had other conversations this morning, and we had them come to us here at the cabinet today, along with other relevant public officials, to brief us. And as a consequence, certain decisions have been taken. But to understand the decisions and the declarations which I'm required to make in accordance with the law of the land concerning the National Emergency Management Organization, and with disasters, including volcanic disasters, that it is important first, having received the advice of the Director of NEMO as required under the law, and having also been advised by Professor Robertson, which advice is very relevant and which the Director of NEMO has adopted as her own and has advised me in those terms as presented by Professor Robertson. I think it's first of all very important for me to have Professor Robertson give the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines the benefit of his analysis and technical advice and recommendation as to how we proceed henceforth immediately with La Soufrière volcano. So, Professor Robertson Ritchie, the floor is yours. The people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are listening to you.
Yes, Prime Minister, thank you very much for that introduction. Right, so what's been happening? As people know, since 27th of December last year, the volcano has been erupting. It's been erupting quietly, this QC eruption, as we call it, where material has been coming out of a vent in the southwestern crater floor and slowly building a dome. We've always said that there's always the option of that it continuing for an indefinite period. There was the option of stopping, and there was also the possibility that it could go either faster or become explosive. Since then, we've had a certain kind of earthquakes related to that. And as everybody know, on the 22nd, 23rd, 25th, we had a period of VT earthquakes, which was slightly different. We said that were coming from deeper down and suggested that there's a fresh batch of magma trying to get to the surface. And then about a week or two after that, we had another VT swarm. And again, we told you that, you know, it suggested even more so that was the case. So we're now into a period now that since early this morning, at about 3 o'clock, we got another change in seismicity. It changed significantly, where the seismic station that was closest to the summit, the one that is right on the volcano, began to record what we call low-level seismic tremor. A tremor is a kind of activity that's associated with volcanoes, where it's essentially a continuous vibration of the ground. It's very slow level, so it's only recorded at summit station, so people on the volcano can feel it. But since this morning, since about 3 o'clock, we have had three separate episodes of this tremor. The first one was from about 3 to 3:40. Then there was a break, and then there was another one between 5:30 to 6:20. Another break, and then from 8 to about 9 o'clock. So we have had three, and then we had a fourth that started about 10:15. So we have what we call now tremor and what we call banded tremor happening in discrete bands. Now, tremor is usually a signal that it's a continuous seismic signal that I said, and it's usually associated with the movement of magma to the surface. Now, you know, we know magma that was coming out already. What this suggests is that more magma or fresh massive magma is on its way to the surface. In addition to the tremor, we have recorded 3 long period earthquakes during the second. These were recorded during the second batch of tremor. And again, long period earthquakes from studying volcanoes, this volcano and other volcanoes elsewhere, they are also usually associated with the movement of magma. So all indications are that there's a fresh mass of magma that is indicative, that is trying to come through. The other thing that we noted during the period since this morning, earliest morning, is that whenever you have this period of tremor, we have had elevated and continuous periods of gas venting. So the amount of steam, the white puffs that you normally see as puffs, they have been sustained during the periods of tremor from the summit. Again, that's another indication that the tremor is associated with a fresh batch of magma coming through. So our interpretation is that the volcano has entered a heightened period of activity, and suggesting that fresh magma is either near the surface or approaching the surface. And therefore, the possibility for activity to move from an explosive phase has increased significantly. While before we were always saying that was one possibility, the indications are that the possibility has increased significantly based on the activity we're seeing. And the unfortunate thing in all of that is that given the current state of activity, given the data that we have, we still can't say exactly when that would happen, but it certainly has, given the activity we're having, it's up the ante and it's suggesting that it wants to get to the surface and it possibly could get explosive. And that's the information that we have in terms of the latest activity. We know into a period where we would not be surprised if sometime in the near future we have explosions or explosive activity. But there is also still the possibility that it could simply keep on growing the dome and doing what it's doing before. But certainly the signals that we have now suggest that it could do a bit more and it wants to do a bit more. So we need to be at a different level of alerting, at a different level of vigilance in a sense in terms of what we are prepared to deal with. I think that's all I have to say. If there's any questions, I'll deal with it.
May I ask, which I'd ask you at the cabinet?
Yeah.
I know you say that there is still a state of uncertainty, that there is an significantly increased possibility of an explosive eruption.
Yes.
But you do not know the precise time when such eruption is likely, and that it may well settle back down and we don't have an explosive one at all. What is the earliest period possibly from the scientific data that you have that we can have an explosive eruption if one is coming?
Well, I would say it could happen anytime from now, essentially. It's possible that things could pick up more, that you could have more clear seismic signals prior to an explosion, but given what we see, it's possible that it could happen in the next few hours, in a few days. That's possible. But as you said, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, as you said, it's also possible that you could be, each time the volcano has changed, it's given us a bit more signals. So it started by effusively erupting, and then you had signals that were indicating that it was doing that. And then it had some VT earthquake swarm that suggested that something else was trying to come in. And you had another VT earthquake swarm tells you that something else was trying to come in. And now it has this tremor that is associated with. It's really a lot of having to do with steam and movement of steam, which is probably driven by magma. It's telling you that something is probably a little bit closer that's really trying to get to the surface. Now, the possibility that stuff that's coming out has greater energy and more gas in it and therefore could be explosive is what makes it more likely for it to be explosive. But also the possibility is that it could, as you said, it could simply become quiet again, or it could just simply cause the dome to grow faster. But in terms of the time scales for that, it could range from a few hours to a few days.
Okay. And your recommendation to Michelle Forbes was?
Right. Yeah, that essentially our key recommendation is that your preparation should be finalized for a possible evacuation within a few hours. With very little notice, you may need to move people because it has gone explosive. That's the key thing, that because we're not sure the time scales for that, it could be a few hours. You need to be at a state where you are ready to move people out of harm's way. As I speak, in fact, I should tell you the other period of bandit tremor has just started quite on time. So the bandit tremor is continued. So the pattern has continued. It hasn't changed at this present time.
Well, I would ask Michelle Forbes to speak to the issue, and then I will, as Prime Minister, make a particular declaration.
Good afternoon. I think I take off on myself. Good afternoon. We have been in discussions here at Cabinet and with various agencies this morning to heighten our readiness in the event that an evacuation order is given. So far we have been preparing our emergency shelters for in the event that we need to evacuate persons. Our national mechanism is fully activated. We will be meeting the National Emergency Council at 2 p.m. this afternoon. I want to encourage persons, given the new information that Professor Robertson has just presented, we're at the stage where we can go into an explosive eruption at any time, be it a few hours, be it a few days. But we're at that heightened state where we are actually seeing activities now that indicate that we can actually go into an explosive eruption. Those communities over the Rabaca River in particular, I want you to be ready in the event that you need to evacuate, get your things together. We have provided lists of emergency shelters over a week now. Have been going around for some time, and the areas that the communities will be going. So I want to encourage persons, be ready. If you have your elderly persons in particular that you know you need to move ahead of time, or different families, to put those arrangements in place. So we're working with all the agencies of government and private sector to actually ensure that things are in place, so in the event that we go into an evacuation.
Fellow Vincentians at home and abroad, and residents. Section 31 of the National Emergency Disaster Management Act, Chapter 388 of the Revised Laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, empowers the Minister of Disaster Preparedness, in this case the Prime Minister, to make a declaration after consultation with the director of NEMO, which has been done. The declaration is that there is a substantial prospect that a disaster of a kind set out in column 1 of the schedule to the Act, disaster in this regard, a volcanic eruption, that there's a substantial prospect of this disaster of a volcanic kind will strike within an applicable period, and the applicable period here is stage 3, which is a stage 3 alert, a disaster alert, which is prior to a stage 4, which a stage 4 would be an order for evacuation. There is no order for evacuation, but there is a declaration under Section 31 of the National Emergency and Disaster Management Act. It is a declaration that there's a substantial prospect that a disaster will strike. And we have heard Professor Robertson said. And this alert stays within the framework of the Orange Alert. We are making all the final preparations. We will follow the science. We will continue to take the advice of Professor Robertson and the team of scientists, and with Michelle Forbes. And if the occasion arises within the next few hours or within the next few days that it becomes necessary and desirable for an evacuation order to be issued, well, then it would be issued. But this is the stage preparatory to, and the declaration is made within that context, within the framework of the law. Now, as the director of NEMO has said, that at 2 o'clock I will chair a national emergency Management Organization Council meeting, which involves a wide cross-section of the stakeholders, including members of cabinet. And a report would be given by the NEMO director, and their responsibilities assigned under the law to each particular stakeholder. All the details. I don't have to speak to those details. Now you will get more and more information as we go along. But I should indicate already this morning, I was in touch with the United States authorities, the Southern Command, to mobilize assistance, because they have transportation arrangements, they have technical assistance of one kind or another. I've been in touch with the authorities in Venezuela, and those authorities have assets which can be utilized. I've been in touch with the authorities in Cuba, similarly, with the regional security system. I've spoken to the Prime Minister of Barbados, and the Prime Minister of St. Lucia. I didn't get the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda and the Prime Minister of Grenada. Those are important Prime Ministers for me to get in touch with, because each of those had given a commitment that in the case of an evacuation, those countries would be prepared to take Vincentians for a particular period of time. The Professor Robertson estimates that if there were to be a volcanic eruption, we may have a period of maybe 4 months or thereabouts in which we will have to be in a condition of evacuation. Hopefully it would be a shorter period, but that is his estimate given the extent of the material which is built up by the dome and what he sees from the science, from the seismic studies. In the case of the persons who will go to countries in Barbados and St. Lucia, they would be required to be vaccinated. Well, certainly in the case of Barbados, St. Lucia, if you don't vaccinate them here, they will do that there. And we have also activated a contact, which had been an offer which had been made to us by a cruise line. I wouldn't call the name of the cruise line yet, but one in which our people are very much involved, to make available one or more cruise ships to hold persons in addition to those whom we put in our shelters, and because we may have to evacuate numbers up to 20,000. And so we'll need a lot of space, and it would be quite a logistical exercise to move people and keep them. They too have indicated through the Prime Minister of Barbados that persons who will come on the cruise line would need also to be vaccinated, because obviously their ship, after the period, it would be used to take passengers, so they want their vessel to be sanitized in every way, and they want to protect their own business. I have assigned Camilo to link with the Minister of Tourism in Barbados. They know one another very well, and Mia Motley has assigned the Minister of Tourism in Barbados, that when the head of the particular cruise line gets back to us within the next 40 minutes or thereabouts, and the logistical arrangements have to be put in place, that with any cruise ships come below, and the Minister of Tourism in Barbados and the cruise lines operators, officials, they will finalize that. And in the case of movement of persons, for instance, to St. Lucia, we'll have to make the requisite transportational arrangements by sea or by air, or both. As a consequence of this declaration, events have overtaken us in respect of the reopening of the schools. Therefore, the schools will not be reopened on the 12th of April, Monday the 12th of April. And the schools, we will expect, as far as is practicable, for online teaching and learning to continue. Within less than 2 weeks' time, the remainder of the devices would be here. I've been assured by the Director of Planning, Mr. Ricky Frederick, and Camilo, that they would be here for distribution. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, the Ministry of Social Development, the Ministry of Housing, the Ministry of Transports and Works, and the Deputy Prime Minister are all very much engaged in this exercise, in education and health and social development. So everyone has an important role to play. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she would be in touch along with me with foreign governments on this particular matter. I want to say that we do not need to panic. We need to be calm. We need to be disciplined. We do not need to have any contentiousness. We don't need to have any confusion. If we are all calm and disciplined, fortified with our belief in Almighty God, and that His grace will see us through, that we are going to be fine. And we will rebuild this country as we rebuilt after 1979. If the worst happens, Camilla has just sent me a note here saying that the Chief Executive Officer of Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, Mr. Michael Bailey, will have one vessel here tonight by 8 p.m. if we require. The capacity is 1,500 persons, and the second one can come shortly thereafter. So we can't do the evacuation and the housing of persons in any slipshod manner. We have to do it in a proper way. In respect of the frontline workers, we are making arrangements with guest houses and hotels to accommodate them. Some persons will naturally go into schools, and we are making all the preparation there. But the fewer persons we have going into schools, the better it would be, because on a cruise ship, for instance, you have more facilities, but clearly, because people are going to be, wherever you go, you're going to be in a reasonably confined space, whether it's on a cruise ship or whether it's on a school, so that it is expected that we will take the first dose of the vaccine. It is important for us to do that, because we are in the midst of a pandemic and we are in the midst of a situation of community spread. You notice we have been making the arrangements appropriate to all the circumstances. And with our friends, we will be able to get through this matter, and with our own discipline and organization. In respect of the teachers, many of them are shelter managers and they're operating with the shelters. Information will come to them through NEMO and through the Ministry of Education. There are details, there are lots of details, a multiplicity of details, and the transportation arrangements. I have a whole book here on the volcano evacuation transportation, those who have to be transported by land and by sea. We may have to transport some by air depending on if some are going overseas. But you'll go overseas for a short period of time, obviously, and you'll return home. But it will, how many will go, we don't actually know. Though Grenada had earlier said, and I had spoken to the Chancellor of the university, that they will probably have a facility for about 1,800. We have to bear in mind that their school will restart at some time. So all those things have to be taken into account. Antigua had said that they have a facility which would take about 500, a hotel. In St. Lucia, 250, 300 or thereabouts. So that in addition to our own shelter facilities here and what we may have on the cruise line, this is a massive exercise. Not everything will go perfectly. We are going to expect that we are going to have challenges and hiccups, as in every aspect of life and living. But as you will notice, this morning, I was given the information, and it's now just after midday, and we are where we are, that I can tell you about all of these arrangements, and you will hear more information. I want to have 2 persons speak additionally to give you an indication as to what would be done. The Chief Medical Officer, who would have to say something on the health question, and also the Commissioner of Police in relation to security matters. So, Simone.
Okay, thank you, PM. Good afternoon, everybody. So, as we are all aware, at this point, St. Vincent and Grenadines has community spread of COVID-19. That means that there are cases out there that we do not know of. And as we also know, we have asymptomatic spread being the majority of cases. Therefore, because a shelter is defined as a confined space where the risk of spread of a contagious disease such as COVID-19 is great, it is strongly recommended that everyone who will have to be in a shelter or have to be engaged in the management of a shelter be vaccinated as a matter of urgency. Even with 1 dose, we all know that allows for some level of immunity, and after the 2nd dose, which we can give at an earlier date, you have a significant level of immunity which protects you from severe COVID and from the possibility of death at admission. At this time, it is extremely important that we understand the risk involved in gathering in a shelter. We have sufficient vaccines on hand. All of our clinics are open and ready to allow for vaccination and testing as necessary. And we really do urge everyone in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the persons who are in the red zones, which would have to be evacuated if there's an evacuation order, and the persons they are coming to. So we are not just looking at the evacuees, we are looking at where are they going to. Are they going to homes? Are those persons protected? So we really do urge that this takes place. As it is now, the entire health team, we have been activated for over a year now, and we are continuing to work. But we need, this is a shared responsibility, and we are really asking everyone to take the advice and protect yourself and protect your loved ones in this situation. And that's the PM.
I'm wondering if you can mention about the health facilities in the red zones. What will happen to those facilities?
So in the Modern Medical and Diagnostic Center, the Smart Hospital in Georgetown, in the event of evacuation, those facilities will be closed. Health workers will not be there. They will move their services down to the Milton Katie Memorial Hospital. So, for example, we have dialysis at the Modern Medical and Diagnostic. Those services will be moved to the Milton Katie Memorial Hospital, and we would partner with our private sector colleagues to allow for the continuation of dialysis services. In terms of oncology services, chemotherapy services will be moved back to the Milton Katie Memorial Hospital, and we are currently engaged in ensuring that we can continue to provide those services. We have also been in contact with the BDF in Barbados, where there is a field hospital. I was in communication with them up to this morning so that we can continue